Part 3. The Rise and Fall of Kievan Rus and the Beginning of Russia. In the 9th century, a land once inhabited by wild warriors and nomadic tribes began to experience a golden age. Kiev, today's heartbeat of Ukraine, became the center of a power that extended far beyond the known Europe. But this story is not just one of glory and success. It is also one of violence, war, and dramatic upheaval that would forever alter the course of Eastern European history. In this third part of our series, we dive into the years 800 to 1200 AD, a time of rise, faith, and profound change. Section 1. The Rise of Kievan Rus, 800–1050 AD. Since the 9th century, Kievan Rus had quickly developed into a regional great power. The first historical records of Kievan Rus come from this time, when the Slavs, united under a single political structure, began to consolidate the Eastern Slavic tribes and establish stable rule. Kiev became the heart of this early federation and soon emerged as the center of a vast empire, stretching across much of modern-day Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. The first significant ruler was Grand Prince Oleg of Novgorod, who conquered Kiev in 882 AD and effectively founded Kievan Rus. Oleg united the various Slavic tribes and made Kiev the political center of the realm. But it was under the next Grand Prince, Vladimir the Great, Vladimir I, 958 to 1015, that the empire reached its greatest extent and importance. Vladimir the Great is perhaps best known for his role in the Christianization of Kievan Rus. He introduced Christianity as the state religion, which not only shaped the political landscape, but also forged the cultural and religious identity of the empire. The Christian faith spread rapidly across the land, and Kievan Rus experienced a cultural renaissance that is often referred to as its golden age. Section 2. The Mongol Invasion, 1223–1240 AD. However, this rise of Kievan Rus would not last long. By the end of the 12th century, the Mongols, under the leadership of Genghis Khan, and later his grandson Batu Khan, began conquering territories in Eastern and Southern Europe. The decisive blow to Kievan Rus came in 1240, when the Mongols sacked Kiev and destroyed the Grand Duchy. The Mongol invasion brought Kievan Rus to collapse and led to the fragmentation of the once powerful state into various smaller principalities. Yet, the Mongols also left their mark. The influence of the Golden Horde, as the Mongol Empire in Eastern Europe was called, shaped the region for the coming centuries. Section 3. The Role of Poland and Lithuania. In the aftermath, the region experienced a series of political changes, and other powers like Poland and Lithuania began to gain influence. Poland sought to control the western territories of Kievan Rus, while the Grand Duchy of Lithuania expanded eastward. Lithuania played a decisive role in the development of future Russian territories by controlling the eastern parts of Kievan Rus and laying the foundation for the later Russian rule in the northwest. Poland and Lithuania, however, were not just rivals but also allies against the Mongols and later against the growing Moscow. Their political strategy involved exerting influence over the former territories of Kievan Rus, which led to various alliances and conflicts. Poland and Lithuania's influence was especially strong in the western Ukraine, while Lithuania had a significant presence in present-day Belarus and southwestern Russia. We will examine the history of Poland and Lithuania separately. Section 4. The founding of the oldest cities and their importance. Amid political upheavals, cities such as Kiev, Novgorod, Smolensk, and Pereyaslav were founded and gained enormous importance. These cities were not only trade centers, but also cultural and religious hubs that later formed the backbone of Russian civilization. Kiev, the center of Orthodox Christianity, left lasting imprints in architecture and art. Section 5. The importance of religion, Christianity and the churches of Kievan Rus. The Christianization of Kievan Rus by Vladimir the Great was one of the most decisive developments of this time. However, the introduction of Christianity also led to deep religious tensions that extended far beyond the year 1054. The division between the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church influenced the political landscape and created cultural rifts that still echo in the history of Russian and Ukrainian churches today. Section 6. The importance of religion, Christianity and the churches in Kievan Rus. The introduction of Christianity was one of the most important developments in Kievan Rus. In 955, Princess Olga of Kiev accepted Christianity, but it was Vladimir the Great who made the faith the state religion. Christianization not only led to a stronger centralization of the empire, but also sparked a cultural renewal, as Russian society became integrated into the religious structures of the Byzantine Empire. However, the introduction of Christianity also resulted in a long-term conflict, the difference between the Roman Catholic Church in the West and the Eastern Orthodox Church. This religious split played a crucial role in the development of the political and cultural identity of the later Russian states. The conflict between the Orthodox and Catholic churches shaped the religious landscape of Eastern Europe and led to tensions that persist in the history of the Russian and Ukrainian churches. Transition to the next events. Kievan Rus may have fallen, but its legacy lives on. The Mongol invasion ended the First Russian Empire, but it also paved the way for the emergence of a new power, Moscow. Moscow, once a minor settlement, set out to become the center of a rising power. But what happened to Kievan Rus, and how did the rise of Moscow affect the future of Russia and Ukraine? After the fall of Kievan Rus in the 13th century, Moscow began to develop into a center of power in the 14th century. Under Grand Prince Ivan III, also known as Ivan the Great, Moscow threw off Mongol rule and established itself as the dominant power in the region. Moscow took the place of Kiev and claimed the legacy of the old empire. The idea of Moscow as the Third Rome, as the successor of Byzantium, strengthened its significance as the cultural and religious center of Russia. Section 7. Cyril, the saint and his influence. A key figure in this story was Cyril of Thessalonica, who, along with his brother Methodius, created the Cyrillic alphabet, which continues to shape Slavic languages to this day. Their influence on the spread of Christianity and church identity in Kievan Rus was immense and contributed to the cultural and religious networking of the Slavs. Section 8. The origin of the name Ukraine. The name Ukraine has deep historical roots. Originally, the word Ukraina meant borderland or frontier area, and it was used in the 12th century to describe regions claimed by different powers. Over the centuries, Ukraine evolved to refer to the area now known as Ukraine, but the political identity of the region was not yet defined. Section 9. The importance of the founding of the key monasteries. The monasteries of Kievan Rus were not only religious centers, but also cultural and educational institutions. The Kiev-Pechersk Lavra and the Sviatohersk Monastery played key roles in spreading Christianity and solidifying the cultural identity of Kievan Rus. The rise of Moscow, the birth of modern Russia. After the fall of Kievan Rus in the 13th century under Mongol rule, Moscow began to establish itself as a new center of power. In the 14th and 15th centuries, Moscow, initially controlled by the Mongols as a vassal state, steadily grew in influence and size. The decisive moment came with the recapture of Kiev by the Mongols and the rise of Grand Prince Ivan III of Moscow, who in 1480 shook off Mongol rule and made Moscow the new power base in Eastern Europe. This Muscovite Tsarism overcame the former center of Kievan Rus by relocating political power to Moscow, thereby laying the foundation for the Russian Empire. Moscow not only took on the political legacy of Kievan Rus, but also became the cultural and religious center. However, the differences between Moscow and Kiev grew ever clearer. Kiev, now on the borderlands of the Kingdom of Poland, and later the Cossack states, developed into an independent center of Ukrainian identity, while Moscow increasingly became the embodiment of the Russian nation-state. The differences between the churches, Orthodoxy and Catholicism. A central point of distinction between Russian and Ukrainian cultures was the religious division between the Russian Orthodox Church and the Greek Orthodox Church in Ukraine. This religious divergence not only led to different religious practices, but also to the formation of two strong national identities that persist to this day. Russian Orthodoxy, which after the 1054 schism between the Catholic and Orthodox churches developed its own identity, was under the authority of the Russian Church, which was closely tied to the state. Moscow claimed the legacy of the Byzantine Empire and saw itself as the Third Rome, after the fall of Constantinople in 1453. The Russian Church was both politically and religiously integrated with the state, which led to stronger centralization and a growing sense of Russian national identity. In contrast, Ukrainian Orthodoxy remained heavily influenced by Greek Orthodoxy, with close ties to Constantinople. However, the split between the Catholic and Orthodox churches led to the rise of uniate churches, especially after the Union of Brest in 1596. This union, which united the Ukrainian Orthodox Church with the Roman Church, led to a religious divide that created tensions between Ukraine and Russia, both politically and culturally.